Ready for a deep dive? We're talking personal growth today, folks. We're going to be digging into some of your notes and some really fascinating excerpts all about how to, rewire your thinking, for success. And get this, we're going to unpack how the way we talk about our emotions can actually change how we experience them.
Yeah.
Wild, right?
It's amazing how much of this material emphasizes our power to choose.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, it's not about our circumstances, it's about the decisions we make, even when things are tough.
It's like it's not the hand you're dealt, but how you play it, right? Speaking of which, you've got some notes here about a guy named Ed Roberts. He really embodies that idea.
Oh, Ed Roberts is a fantastic example. This is someone who absolutely refused to let adversity, define him. Imagine contracting polio as a teenager and ending up in an iron lung.
Oh my gosh.
Most people would just feel defeated. Understand?
Of course, especially so young.
Exactly. But Ed used it as a springboard. He fought for his right to attend UC Berkeley, even when they tried to deny him admission because of his physical limitations. He went on to become a champion for the disabled. He even established the very first Center for Independent Living.
Talk about turning a negative situation into positive change. That's incredible.
It really is.
But how do we apply that kind of thinking to our own lives? We may not all face challenges on that scale, but we all hit roadblocks.
Right, and that's the key. It's about recognizing that we always have a choice. Ed couldn't change the fact that he had polio, but he could choose how he responded to it. So ask yourself, what's the iron lung in your life right now? What's that one challenge that feels insurmountable? And more importantly, how can you choose to approach it differently?
That is such a powerful question to consider. It really makes you think about those moments when we feel stuck and how often it comes down to our perspective and the choices that we're making.
Exactly, and sometimes those choices are about rewiring deeply ingrained habits. We humans are naturally drawn to pleasure, and we tend to avoid pain.
Oh, tell me about it. Chocolate cake, anyone. But yeah, seriously, you're talking about the pain-pleasure principle, right?
Yeah.
How it drives so many of our decisions without us even realizing it.
Exactly. And you've even highlighted an interesting example in your own life, a story about your mom and, well, let's just say a rather unique approach to breaking a bad habit. It's a story that definitely highlights the power of shifting those pain-pleasure associations, even if it's not for the faint of heart.
Okay, you're going to have to refresh my memory. What was your mom's strategy again?
Let's just say it involved a certain snack food I couldn't resist and a can of Alpo.
Alpo, like dog food, Alpo.
You got it.
Wow.
Her solution. Every time I wanted to indulge in that snack, I had to eat a spoonful of Alpo right alongside it.
Wow. That's creative parenting. I'm guessing it worked, though.
Let's just say I quickly stopped associating that snack with pleasure.
Right.
But the takeaway here is that our brains are constantly making these associations, linking certain actions or substances with either reward or punishment.
Right.
And the more we repeat those actions, the stronger those neural pathways become.
So it's not just about willpower. It's about rewiring those underlying associations.
Yeah.
But how do we do that? Especially when it comes to those big picture decisions where the pain or pleasure isn't immediate.
That's where it gets really interesting. We can actually train ourselves to think more long-term, even if our initial instinct is to go for the quick fix. Think about the savings and loan crisis back in the 80s.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a perfect example of short-term thinking backfiring on a massive scale.
Exactly. It was all about making a quick buck, disregarding the potential consequences down the road.
Right.
And those consequences were devastating.
Totally.
But what's fascinating is we often fall into the same trap on a personal level.
Right.
Whether it's, overspending on a credit card or clinging to an unhealthy habit, we prioritize that immediate gratification over long-term well-being.
Yeah. So how do we break that cycle? How do we start thinking like investors, not just consumers, when it comes to our own lives?
It starts with awareness.
Yeah.
Just recognizing that this pain-pleasure principle is at play in so many of our decisions. That's both big and small. Then it's about consciously shifting our focus, asking ourselves, what will bring me genuine satisfaction and fulfillment in the long run, even if it requires a little discipline or discomfort in the present?
It's like delaying gratification, but with a bigger purpose in mind. We've talked about how our brains are wired, how we can rewire those automatic responses. But what about our belief systems? Don't those play a role in how we navigate challenges and achieve our goals?
Absolutely. Our beliefs are incredibly powerful. They can shape our actions, our relationships, even our physical health. Think about the placebo effect, the idea that simply believing in a treatment can have a real, measurable impact on our well-being.
That always blows my mind. It's like our minds are capable of healing our bodies just through the power of belief. And that reminds me of another example from my notes, something about car transmissions.
You're remembering the story of the Ford and Japanese transmissions. It's
Yes.
a fascinating illustration of how beliefs translate into real-world outcomes, even in the manufacturing industry.
Yeah. It was something about customers preferring the Japanese transmissions, even though both met the required standards. How did that even happen?
Well, Ford had contracted a Japanese company to manufacture half of the transmissions for one of their car models, just to keep up with demand.
Okay.
And what they discovered was that customers were willing to pay a premium and wait longer to get their hands on a car with a Japanese-made transmission.
Wow. Talk about brand loyalty or maybe transmission loyalty, but what was the actual difference? Weren't they built to the same specifications?
Here's the thing. When engineers analyzed both transmissions, measuring each component, they found that both met the quality standards set by Ford. But there was a key difference: the consistency.
Okay, so it's not just about hitting the target, but how consistently you hit it.
Precisely. The Japanese transmissions exhibited almost zero variation in their components, while the American-made transmissions, while still meeting the standards, showed a greater degree of variability.
So even though both were technically sound, the Japanese transmissions were built with a higher level of precision and consistency.
Exactly. And that difference in consistency stemmed from a deep-seated belief in the importance of constant and never-ending improvement, a concept known as kaizen in Japanese.
Oh yeah, can. Constant and never-ending improvement. I love that concept. It's about recognizing that no matter how good we are, there's always room to get even better, to refine our skills, to strive for excellence at everything we do.
It's about shifting from a mindset of good enough to a mindset of how can we make this even better? And this relentless pursuit of improvement, as demonstrated by the Japanese transmission example, can lead to remarkable results over time.
It's just like those incredible sand mandalas created by Tibetan monks. They meticulously place each grain of sand only to sweep it all away upon completion.
Such a powerful metaphor. The process itself becomes a meditation on impermanence, dedication, and the pursuit of perfection, even if the outcome is fleeting.
It reminds us that the journey of constant improvement is just as important as the destination. It's about embracing the process of learning, growing, and refining our craft, no matter what that craft may be. So we've covered decisions, we've explored the power of rewiring our responses to pain and pleasure, and now we're seeing how profoundly our beliefs influence our actions. What other tools can we add to our personal transformation toolkit? It strikes me that we've been talking about external actions a lot,
Yeah.
like the choices we make, the habits we build. But what about our internal world, the way we talk to ourselves?
That internal dialogue, it's more powerful than we often realize. In fact, the questions we habitually ask ourselves, those can either limit or liberate our potential.
It's like that saying, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Our beliefs really do shape our reality.
They absolutely do. And you've highlighted a rather harrowing story in your notes about a man named Stanislavski Leach that perfectly illustrates this point.
Oh, right. The prisoner who was forced to load bodies onto a truck. That's a pretty intense example.
Leach was imprisoned in a Nazi concentration camp during the war.
Right.
Imagine the horrors he must have witnessed daily.
I can't even fathom it. To be surrounded by so much suffering and death.
He was tasked with loading the bodies of those who had perished onto a truck. And as he carried out this grim duty, day after day, a chilling question dawned on him. What if one day he was the one being loaded onto that truck?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Just the thought of that is.
It was a turning point for him, though. Instead of succumbing to despair, to the seemingly inevitable, he asked himself a different question. How can I use this situation to escape?
So even in that horrific environment facing unimaginable circumstances, he chose to focus on a question of possibility, of agency.
Exactly. And that single question, it sparked a glimmer of hope, a shift in his thinking. He realized he could use his position to his advantage to create an opportunity for escape.
And he actually pulled it off, right? He managed to escape the camp.
He did. He seized his chance, hiding among the bodies, and eventually made his way to freedom. It's a truly remarkable story of resilience, and it highlights how even the simplest question can change our entire trajectory.
It's like asking the right question. It's like it primes your brain to find the answer. To see those possibilities where you once saw only dead ends.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And just as we can learn to ask more empowering questions, we can also transform our internal landscape by paying attention to the words we use to describe our experiences.
You're talking about what you call transformational vocabulary, right?
Yes.
This is where it all comes together, our words shaping our emotions and experiences.
Exactly. You mentioned a friend of yours who seemed immune to stress,
Oh, yeah.
and you noticed he never used the word stressed.
Never. He just didn't have that word in his vocabulary. Challenging situations, those were interesting or maybe a bit much, but never stressful. And it really made me stop and think.
And you began to experiment with this idea yourself, didn't you?
I did. I used to say frustrated all the time, so I decided to swap it out for fascinated just to see what would happen.
What did you discover?
It was actually kind of amazing. Just changing that one word had a noticeable impact on how I felt. I was still aware of the challenges, but my emotional reaction was less intense, less reactive.
That's the power of language.
Yeah.
By consciously choosing our words, even in subtle ways, we can shift our emotional state and alter our perception of reality.
It's like choosing to view life through a different lens, you know? We're not denying the challenges, but we're choosing to engage with them in a more empowered way.
Precisely. And it's not just about eliminating negative words, it's about finding more powerful, nuanced ways to describe our experiences.
It's like you were saying earlier, instead of saying I'm okay or I'm fine, try using words like joyful, grateful, or exuberant when you're feeling good. Those words carry a different kind of energy, you know, a vibrancy that can actually amplify those positive emotions.
And that vibrancy can spill over into our interactions with others. Think about how a simple shift in language can transform a tense business meeting into a collaborative problem-solving session.
Right. It's about reframing the situation without downplaying its importance. So instead of saying, we have a serious problem, you might say, this presents an interesting challenge. Or even inject a bit of humor. Well, this is a fine kettle of fish.
Exactly. Humor can be a powerful tool for diffusing tension and shifting perspective. And sometimes it's about simply acknowledging the absurdity of a situation with a well-placed, corporate buzzword, turning a never-ending meeting into a death march or a preschooler into a yard ape.
Hey, sometimes you just gotta call it like you see it, right?
Right.
But in all seriousness, this idea of transformational vocabulary is about recognizing the power of language to shape our inner and outer worlds.
It's about becoming the conscious architects of our experience, choosing words that empower us, uplift us, and inspire us to live more fulfilling lives.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into personal transformation, it seems we've uncovered a common thread here. It's not about passively accepting our circumstances, but actively shaping them through the power of our choices, our beliefs, and even our words.
You've hit the nail on the head. Small shifts in any of these areas can create a ripple effect, leading to profound personal transformation. And, there's a powerful question posed in the material you've been studying that I think perfectly encapsulates this idea. If you could instantly change your state in any environment, what would you be capable of achieving?
Wow, now that is a question to ponder, isn't it?
Right.
It's like a challenge to step into our full potential, to unleash that power within each of us.
The power to transform our lives rests within each of us. It's time to unlock it.
Thanks for joining us on this incredible journey into the heart of personal transformation. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep unlocking your amazing potential.